Hey everybody, this is another episode of ExtraNormal Podcast. My name is Chris, alongside me is Brianna.
Hey guys, what's up?
Hey, what's going on? How you doing?
Good.
Awesome. Yeah, another fun-filled week for us. Yeah, so I think not to get into too much personal stuff, but I think the quarantine syndrome has finally hit us. At least for me, it's I don't know. We've been talking about it for a few months, a few weeks, and this is probably more drab. It's more podcast drab for some people, but yeah, it's affecting my psyche. It's affecting my Halloween vibes.
Yeah, I could see that because for you work from home. You literally are home 24/7, and for me, I have to actually go to work to do hair. So it's definitely different.
Yeah, I mean, it's a weird. It's been a
different
weird
vibe
feeling.
For you.
Yeah,
for me, I get out like I'm driving. It takes me like 30 minutes to get to work, so I'm out clear air. Well, not so clear air with all the fires, but I think I would be in a probably more of a darker state if I was working from home 24/7.
It's strange. Yeah, you go into, like, for me working from home, I go into the hole, and as I refer to it, and I don't get out for a long time, so it's kind of dreary. It's kind of, I don't know. Anyways, let's get into the subject before we divert too much. What are we going to be talking about today?
Our cat meowing and ruining our podcast. So we're going to kick off all the spooky stuff because it's almost October 1st. Woot woot. We're going to be talking about exorcisms.
Yeah, we're going to be getting into exorcism and get into some of the stuff behind it and what it may be, the validity of it, all that stuff. Let's get into so with the exorcisms, we're going to be talking about some of the most famous cases, but with the exorcism, you're trying to exorcise out a demon, and so we're talking about demon possession, according to, I guess, mainly I saw around all over the world there's exorcisms that there's like Tibetan exorcism, but the most famous, like the ones that all the fun films are made out of are about
the Catholic Church.
Catholic, a lot of fun surrounds the Catholic Church, but it's all around Catholic Church, and that's the primary focus, that they believe that demons can come inside a human and possess them and cause them to act strangely.
Fun fact time. I know people always think, because of the movie The Exorcist, that they think like the levitation was just like something to make the film more dramatic, but it actually does happen, and it has occurred.
They say
I've done a lot of research on that, and I found from a few different priests that have witnessed it at least once or twice. So I thought that was really fascinating.
Yeah, according to the priest.
No green throw up though. They do sometimes like throw up, but it's not green. Unless maybe they had a green smoothie before.
Possibly. Real possible. So I guess the exorcisms, it's always been around like some kind of religious basis.
Of what
exorcism. Where did it
demon
come from?
And possession is? Yeah. Well, what I have, like, just as general, basically it's when the devil takes over a victim's physical activities as well as their mental and spiritual energies. How to tell if you're dealing with a real demon possession exorcism. This is like the difference, because a lot of people think, oh, well, maybe they're just schizophrenic, or maybe they just have this going on, or maybe they just have that going on. But literally, in certain cases, there's you can tell that they're actually experiencing exorcism when their eyes roll back in their head, and all you see is the white pupil and nothing else. So that's the how to differentiate.
Yeah. So what I found was that it's always been a practice, and it's
at least a couple thousand years, right?
Yeah, and they were going a long time, and they actually started to decline in the 18th century, just because it came out of vogue. I mean, it's not really, it's kind of a super culty move to do. So it became out of vogue kind of in the 18th century, and then the mid, like there was still exorcism, and then the famous cases got rolling, and then the movie The Exorcist like really blew up exorcism again. Now it's kind of a thing again. I think it's still pretty small. I know that I saw that there's at least 50 active Catholic priests who are like trained in exorcisms. Like they're kind of, they've been deputized in exorcism essentially.
Yeah, I can totally see that. And like I also was reading when I was doing my research, and it seems that like not only just Catholics are doing this, but also like Baptist churches, which to me, not to be like, oh, the Catholics are the only ones that do it right, but I'm wondering what dialogue they go from, because I know specifically stuff, there's like written documents in Catholicism that they have to read that is going to remove the demon or spirit from the person having the exorcism. So I wonder where from this Baptist church, I wonder where they got like their whole stuff from, you know?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's all sex stuff. It's all like, you know, like every
sex stuff.
Sect stuff. Every single religious like sect has their their version of what needs to be said. So it's not surprising that there's a Baptist version, especially because there's like baptism has a streak of kind of like some of the more radical practices like speaking in tongues and stuff like that. I'm not all Baptist, but they definitely have a streak of that. So that's not surprising at all. That's not that seems pretty commonplace. So yeah, now there's like all kinds of exorcists that are floating around. I saw online that there's a priest by the name of Brother Carlos Oliveira, and he is all over the internet. Like he is like, if you need for a TV show, if you need
wait, where is he from? Argentina? Is he the Argentinian?
I believe so.
Oh,
maybe not. I don't know where he's from.
There's one. I've totally spaced his name, but if anybody is curious, comment in our space on YouTube or on our Instagram, and I'll get you this guy's information, because there's like to me he looks like a total fake. He's this priest in Argentina, and it almost, I don't know, when he was doing his ritual over these girls, he had the cross kind of like on their boobs, and I didn't like the way that he was like moving it, and then just the way he kissed his assistant on the mouth, and she's very young and he's very old. They go on holiday together, and so it went from like this skeptic trying to like understand what the whole process was, to being like, what's up with this guy and this girl?
Well, I think if you are practicing, how do I put this lightly? I think if you are either asking for an exorcism or if you're performing exorcism, you're a little eccentric at the very least. If you're like, I want to be the person to perform these exorcisms, like you believe that like there's demon possessions all over the place, and you're trying to do that, you're going to be a little eccentric. Like, so of course these people who perform it are like, and there seems to be like this weird, small, but like weird corner of people who are kind of taking exorcism like this Carlos Oliveira, like who seem to be taking it almost like a psychic route, like they're exorcism for hire, almost like kind of thing. So, you know, it's
kind of horrible.
Yeah, I mean, but it happens. It's commerce.
I know.
There's always
it's money. They're gonna go where the money is. And for me, I'm like, if you do have a gift to be able to exorcise a demon out of somebody, like, why wouldn't you use that for good? You're saving somebody's life, because a lot of these people, they're completely tormented mentally, and they just want to be free.
Yeah, and it goes into like there's so part of this whole thing is like I don't know, I believe it's probably not demons inside. I think it's certain psychoses and mental health, and it's probably
How did I know you were going to say that?
The demons within us, essentially, the metaphorical demons within us. I mean, if you don't necessarily believe in the devil, it's hard to believe that there's demons.
You don't believe in the devil, right?
I don't know. I don't know.
And see, me, obviously, surprise, surprise, I do definitely believe, not in all these cases, but I do definitely believe that exorcism is a real thing. And again, just like with any religion, we talked about in our last episode, or maybe the one before that, about Salem and witchcraft, and you get it in the wrong hands, and anybody's going to use it to their advantage for power, for money, however they're going to use it for. But I believe that these people can be tormented by spirits and demons, evil beings. And so I definitely believe that there is some merit to that, and that it is real.
Yeah, I don't know. Let's get into the most. I think there's two infamous cases, right, of exorcisms. So Roland Doe is a big one, and it's the reason why there is so much fascination with exorcisms. There's always been it's always been part of our fabric. It's always been known. It's always been kind of this weird thing that happens. But the reason why it kind of created a little bit of hysteria from the movie The Exorcist is from The Exorcist was based on a story, a case from 1949. A boy by the name of Roland Doe. Did you look into Roland Doe?
Yeah, I was a little bit confused because remember we were looking at crossing different paths, and he went by a few different names.
Yeah, someone called him, like some documentary called him Richard. I don't know what's going on.
Call me Dick.
The thing is too, like it could be Roland, because he was actually anonymous. So
yeah,
in 1949, there was a small boy. He was 14, I believe, is the belief. He had exorcism practices performed on him because he apparently, they were living near St. Louis, right? Was where they were resided. And this boy, he had an Aunt Tilly, I believe her name was, who passed away. And the lore is that Aunt Tilly was into like pagan stuff and Ouija and all this kind of stuff.
And they played together.
Yeah, and then she passed away, and he started acting strange. He was an only child, so that might play into some of it. But he started acting strange, and so the family was very devout Catholic. They were very religious, and they actually they actually called some priests out, right? Mm-hmm. And that's where it started. The fabric started.
Well, the parents were just devastated. They didn't know what to do because they witnessed, different things like in his bedroom, chairs being thrown across the room, his bed shaking. So they started witnessing. They witnessed wounds appearing, kind of like a demonic version of stigmata, and so like they were very concerned for their son's life.
Yeah. So the reason why they started calling the priest out is because apparently he was acting strange, and then stuff started flying around the room, they say, and his desk at school was rattling, so they pulled him out of school. And then they had I think the most famous one was, there's two priests, right? Bowdern and Holleran, right, were the two priests that came over, and Bowdern was kind of like he was like the mentor, and then Holleran, I think, was the apprentice. But they came over and they started trying to do these exorcisms on him, exorcising him. It's such a weird word, exorcising. I don't like it because it's too
exorcise the demons.
Yeah, it's too weird. Just think of people doing push-ups, but they started doing it, and he started. I mean, the legends are that he was spitting up. He was spitting
pee on them.
He'd pee, but I think that was kind of disputed. I mean, all this stuff is kind of murky, but and then he actually started talking Latin too. In Latin, apparently, he said, "O priest of Christ, know that I am the devil," in Latin.
And to me, that's like, and I know they said, he attended the Catholic Church, so he might have picked up Latin there. I'm sorry, I've attended the Catholic Church my whole life. I don't know. I don't know one word.
1949. Who knows?
And if I do, I probably will pronounce it very wrong.
Yeah, but so there's some speculation that he might have like been fucking with him, because one of the more traditional, if you don't want to like take the whole demon route, is that Aunt Tilly probably was like Think of him in like this super Catholic world, like in 1949. He clearly wasn't of that. He wasn't at least as devout as they were, because he started playing Ouija and stuff with his aunt. And she probably taught him some stuff about like how to like all kind of the speculation, the spookiness of Catholicism and the sort. But she probably taught him some stuff. She might have taught him like, hey, if they ever like if you ever in Catholic church, it'll really freak him out if you say this and that or something like that. So he could have very well been like fucking with him.
I know.
He could have been.
That's way too much of a coincidence. I don't think she spoke Latin. Like,
I don't think she spoke full Latin, but
No.
if you're going to be like, so if the boy's going to learn, so if he's fucking, so say in the world where he's just like fucking with these priests, he's just messing with them. Just because he's like, I want to get out of school, I'm lashing out because Aunt Tilly died, all that stuff. He's gonna learn that Latin phrase, right? Just to fuck with him. Like,
No.
that's the one thing he's gonna learn. He's gonna look it up.
It's not
in
like
the encyclopedia.
It's
of, like,
not like
Latin.
after the movie The Exorcist came out, like where all of a sudden there was like a billion people that had like demons they needed to be exorcised out of their bodies. Like, there wasn't any really cases going on.
No,
like,
I think
John Paul down the street didn't have so it's just for this kid to have this like crazy elaborate idea. I just think it's wild.
But he wasn't inspired by the
I know he was
Exorcist
very
came out.
smart because
he was bright, but The Exorcist came out after, well after.
that's what I'm
he did
saying. It would be different if he was so-called possessed and it happened after the movie, but like there was nothing to compare it to. So for him to be the first one with the demon inside him, like,
well, there was exorcism and there was demons. Like, they were convinced, his parents were convinced that a demon was inside of him. But he could have very well been fucking with him, like not knowing the playbook of how to fuck with priests. He's probably just like, be fucked up if I said this. Like, my parents keep harassing me. I'm out of school. I don't have to go to school. It would really freak these priests out if I learned a weird phrase in Latin. And then he learned that weird phrase in Latin. Like, it's well within the world. I'm not saying that's what happened, but I'm just saying that is definitely a possibility. But yeah, he had the thing that that's hard for people to be skeptic about is kind of his lacerations and stuff on his body. Like, and apparently, like one of the scuttlebutts is that at one point, because there was phrasing like that would show up on his body through scars, and one of it was St. Louis. So the family just packed up and went to St. Louis based on that, which is insane. I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine like
why?
And what's in St. Louis?
Yeah.
I mean, what's gonna like? Is it just getting at it? Is God in St. Louis?
Well,
I've been to St. Louis. I don't.
And if you think a demon's taking over your kid's body, why are you gonna listen to it if it's writing marks on him? Like,
it was a weird move. I mean, they were just like that.
I mean, they were desperate. They didn't, at that point.
Yeah, and that's well within the world of like either way, like who knows what happened to Roland. And I think one of the things that goes towards like the believers kind of ideas, there wasn't financial gain. Like, this family did not want to be known. They buried it.
And it's interesting because after he had the exorcism and it worked, supposedly, he went off to be a scientist. So
yeah, I mean, he could, and that's the thing too, is he obviously had a scientific mind, so he might have been like, and for better or worse, some of the scientists are like are scoff at religion, and so he could have been like young and he's like, I'm smart, I'm just gonna fuck with these priests, these old world priests who believe in these crazy old world practices where they're gonna shout "devil be gone" at me or whatever.
But the self-mutilation, like that's
it was weird.
That's what's weird. And it's weird that it didn't continue as he was an adult. There's no record.
Well, we really don't know. I think
he really was.
I think that people, so there were some investigative reporters after the fact that Blatt, the author of the book that was the inspiration, was inspired by Roland Doe, that inspired the Exorcist movie. After that stuff came out, people started looking into like the real life story, what happened, and so they tried to find Roland Doe. And I think that some reporters, some journalists, and some investigators actually found Roland Doe, and he didn't want to talk. He's like, "No thanks." He was just a big no thanks. So, who knows? And it's all based on. So there's different accounts. Like there's varying accounts between the priests and the parents and Roland and stuff like that, and so it's like this weird murky. And I think sometimes I saw somewhere, like we were watching something, and I think that there was a good point that people kind of see what they want to see out of it. You know, if you're there and it's such a spectacular event, you get swept up in the moment, right? Whether there's actual demons or not in the room, like you get swept up in it, and so like your mind starts going and rolling, and like him rattling the bed might have been more dramatic for this priest, and all of a sudden the bed was shaking, because there was reports that he was shaking the bed. And I think the first time he tried to get I can't do it, exorcised. It's such a weird word to say. I don't know. The first time he got exorcised, they tried to perform the exorcism. I think he was tied down, and he managed to slip it and grab a spring from his bed and slash the priest who tried to perform the exorcism on him. So, you know.
And see, to me, that's definitely demonic.
Is it demonic or is it troubled? I don't know. I don't know. There's definitely some
eyes of the beholder.
You know, and it's crazy. I mean, clearly, obviously, the priest believed that it was demonic possession.
Yeah,
no doubt about that. I don't think they had any doubts, and I think Bodern died in like the 80s, and I think the other guy is still around.
There's actual. If you guys ever want to look it up, there's footage on YouTube with the priest. One of the priests. One of them won't speak of it.
I think one of them passed away. So I don't know.
I think the one that passed away, he's the one that wouldn't speak of it. Took it to the grave, but the other one spoke about it, and 100%. He believes that it was an exorcism.
The extent of the spectacle. Did he comment on that? I don't remember. Did he say that there was? I know that he said that it was like there was definitely spitting. Right. I think they both believe. He said there was urinating.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I know that definitely there wasn't any, to much of the chagrin of people who are fans of the movie Exorcist, there wasn't any head spinning.
No, that's definitely drama for the movies. They said that. But there were some cases that they did see people serpent-like crawling on the walls. So there has been...
Who said that? The priest?
Episodes. Some priests have said that. Not in this particular situation, but other priests when I was just kind of trying to understand and just the whole realm of exorcisms and what to expect and real and fake. That was one of the things they said. It's rare, but it has happened.
And there's definitely, you see all kinds of videos when you look up at exorcism. You see this, like, the common denominator in possessions is, so getting back into that is again, it's if aversion to any kind of crosses is the belief, and there's like acting strange and there is actually some convulsions, which there's some scientific theories that maybe a lot of these supposed demon possessions are linked to epilepsy, like because there's a certain form of epilepsy that is pretty resistant to medications, and it also causes some hallucination.
I'd seen a really tragic story online, and it was about a woman that, as a child, from starting at 2 years old, she had episodes that they thought that was demonic, possession, and come to find out as an adult, she emancipated herself from her parents, and come to find out when she was diagnosed properly, she had epilepsy. And that's what is so sad, that
and I think that
she doesn't talk to her parents. And then so the lady that had interviewed her, they interviewed her parents to this day, and her parents still think that she has some kind of demonic.
And that's one of the problems. And that's I think that leads to possibly opens up the possibility of Roland Doe faking it, because he's having some kind of episode, and and his parents are like, no. He's like, please get me help. I need to figure this out. And his parents are like, no, it's the devil. And he's like, God damn it. Let me just fuck with
And
I
will say, even though in his situation I do think it was real, but I will say in some cases you're right, because there's proven facts that people that have epilepsy, let's say that it starts from when they're 2 years old till like 14, 15, like Roland's age.
Mm-hmm.
It just stops. It goes away. And they say sometimes, what word am I looking for? Neurologically, the mind, as it's growing and it does funky things, and they can't explain it. And then when you're hitting puberty, your hormones are all out of whack. Everything's connected with your brain. And it sends the shockwaves, and then eventually you either outgrow it or you don't. You have to live with it forever. So there are cases where people that have had epilepsy till 14, 15, it just goes away.
Yeah. And I think it's hard to, like, with the human mind, how it is and how many wires there are. I mean, at this point, we're more sophisticated. Our brains are more sophisticated than a computer at this point. Mm-hmm. That's changing. But at this point, it's still more complicated. So imagine the amount of wires. And imagine how many times, okay, think of your world if you live in an office world where you're on a laptop or whatever, if you deal with laptops, how many times do you have to reboot that shit? Mm-hmm. Like, and just imagine how many wirings and shit we have, how many wirings can go wrong, and just it being misinterpreted as a devil. Maybe the demons inside are just crossed wires. But I don't know. But that definitely, the Roland Doe thing is definitely, there's definitely a creepiness to it. There's definitely an element of like, the whole Latin thing is creepy, and him being, even if, and I don't know what Roland did after this, but even the fact of just knowing someone who's that clever and that sophisticated in playing it up, and is like, it's something out of like,
he's capable of doing things that are very dangerous, but then also that are very beautiful. Like if he can overcome just being a little shit of a teenager, and hopefully he did grow up to be a scientist and use it for good, and he didn't become masochistic and harm himself and other people. I'm really hoping that that's the case, but there is that other side where, he could have been a serial killer that never got caught. Like,
yeah. I mean, look at the Golden State Killer, who had how many years of just running around, running free before he got...
Could have been him?
No. No, he wasn't Roland Doe. He was a monster. But do you think, I want to ask you this, because I think you're probably going to have an interesting answer.
Because I'm that interesting.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but you're probably going to have an interesting answer. Just kidding. How many serial killers do you believe are possessed by the devil, and how many do you think are just like loose wires, just child trauma, all the typical the steps of serial killers? Like, you get hit in the head, you have a bad childhood, all that stuff.
Because mental illness runs in my family, I definitely think it's more of a mental illness. I think the people that actually have demonic, mental hauntings, possessions, exorcisms, I think that they are more capable of hurting themselves, in a sense, not saying they're actually hurting themselves, the demons are hurting them, as opposed to hurting other people.
What's the point of it?
Was that interesting?
No.
I thought it was.
It's fascinating. Riveting. You can't see me unless you're watching the video. I'm on the edge of my seat.
Even though it's dark and spooky in here.
It's a small seat, and we try to make it more spooky.
Wow.
So dumb. We love it, though. What's the point of this? What's your theory on? So you believe in demonic possession, right?
Yes. What's the point of it?
Yes, from the devil's perspective, right? What is
it's
why?
him?
Why would he do
because
that?
he wants to control. He wants to hurt a holy being, a being that was blessed and made by the Creator, his Creator, and it's his way of showing us and God that he's still here. And he will always be here until
is that it? Is this
God comes down and fights the great fight. Is
it just a shitty billboard?
Yeah, I think he's genuinely. I mean, because when you think of biblically, what the devil is here to do, what his demons are here to do, they're here to taunt people. They're here to make us lust for things.
Yeah, but that's it seems like the argument falls apart at that point, because it's like, why would he go, like, say, for instance, we were talking about Roland Doe. So Roland Doe, the devil's like, I'm going to go to the middle of fucking St. Louis, Missouri area, and just show up to an anonymous boy, fuck with him for a few months, and then leave. And it kind of has an article.
See, I can't give you the answer, because I asked the same thing, and I pray about it too. I'm like, God, what makes the demon choose these people? And it's like, because obviously this boy was very smart, very intelligent. Like how come he didn't have like the will, the strength? But then you think about, there's people that kill themselves every day, like with the suicidal tendencies, with mental illness, and there's people,
who kill themselves on the suicidal tendencies.
Oh my God.
I love that band.
Well deserved. Then there's people like me that are, I've suffered from depression and still do from time to time, but I can overcome that mind over matter. And sometimes people can't. I'm not sitting up here bragging, because I know that mental illness is a serious thing.
Oh yeah, there's
and if you ever need anybody to talk to about it, you can always reach out to us, and we can give resources to you.
Sure.
100%.
Suicide is never.
But what I'm saying is, like, it's just the matter of fact of the weaker mind versus the stronger mind, and why are some of our minds weaker than the others? Is it because we all just have different strengths and weaknesses?
I don't know if it's weaker. I think that. And I'm someone who has like.
But when I say weaker, I don't mean to be degrading. I don't mean to be like, oh, like it's a mind over matter. It's like when I get those deep thoughts, because I have been suicidal in my past. Like I get as soon as I go there, I get myself out of there, and I put myself in positive energy, get myself out of my funk, and I've always been able to do that. And some people can't. They just physically, mentally can't.
I think that. One is that the scariest part about this is a fun table now, because we're all talking about our own depression issues. Welcome to Podcast World. I think that officially initiates us in the Podcast World talking about depression. I think that one of my fears is that when I've had those moments where I felt weak or whatever, is the times when it's always that. Because there's always kind of I think it's almost human nature to, when you see a ledge, to have that feeling of, what if I jumped, right? It's even almost like a curiosity thing, even if you're not in that mental headspace where things aren't going right for you in your head for whatever reason. And a lot of times, I tell you all the time, is that, one of the biggest signs of depression is when you should be happy, when you should perceive things as going right, or glass half full, you can't get out of that headspace. And it's so the fear is that when you look over that ledge and you say, what if I plunged, there's always another voice in the back of your head that says, don't. The fear is always that, what if that other voice doesn't come in? What if that other voice doesn't talk to you again, and you end up in a tragic spur of the moment? And because there's a lot of people, so we watched. I did. I don't think you saw it, but there's a documentary on the Golden Gate Bridge, because the Golden Gate Bridge is actually high up there in number of suicides. Maybe number 1, number 2. It's really high because it's romanticized. It's like you're jumping off this big thing, and there's a few people who survived, because when you, more than likely, from that height, even though you're landing in water, you're going to break everything, and it's going to end up killing you. But there's a few people who survived, and the instance they did it, and this is even more of a call to, if you ever have these feelings, call
you are
the
not
right
alone.
numbers, and it'll hopefully get you out
even
of that
if
stress.
You don't have friends, you don't have family, you are never alone. There's always somebody you can reach out to. Like I said, you can always reach out to us. Like, we're willing just to, be there to listen. Yeah.
Yeah. And so they always say that, like, because they interviewed some of the people who survived this from jumping, and they always said, they were like, what, in that split second, they were thinking, what the hell did I do? Every
person regrets it. Don't do it.
So, But getting back into the subject is that I think that one is that we were dealing with serious. I mean, could you imagine a world where you have epilepsy and you're in a vulnerable situation because you're going through epileptic seizures or whatever, and it's altering your headspace. And then at the same time, you have a priest telling you, like shouting in your face that the devil's inside you. So you're vulnerable. Like you're already vulnerable, and you're more than likely young, because these exorcisms are usually people who are very young, and your parents are usually exorcisms are called by parents who are very devout. So they've already been these teenagers and kids have already been told that they have the devil inside them, and then there's a priest shouting in your face that you have the devil inside.
They also said, because I was reading a bunch of articles, the shouting is almost like it's like they're putting you in a trance, like in a sense. So that's you're going into this trance place, and then maybe that's where just like this other side of you comes out that's just frustrated. I think that can happen to people that are not possessed and not experiencing, a real exorcism. But I do believe that people that are really having a true exorcism, the priest should be shouting at them when the demon is the most enraged, because it's like the demon is coming back at them. So it's almost like it's lashing out at them. So that's when they have to come full force and really remove and exorcise that demon out of it.
Shouting at people. Speaking of shouting into poor innocent people, Anneliese Michel, did you hear about this one?
Yeah, I saw some of the
Emily Rose movie.
Yeah, some of the footage is sad.
It's frightening.
It's frightening, and it's really sad that she didn't make it.
Yes. So,
do you think that this couldn't have been epilepsy? Because
I think it was. I think it was some kind of mental disorder. So let's get into it. So she was a German girl, right, who was young. I think she was 16 or just above that, when she had her first episode of this kind of I think she actually started out with a seizure. She had a seizure in 1968. How
old was she?
I think she was like 16 or so.
When she had her first seizure?
Mm-hmm. She was young. She might have been a little older, but she was definitely young. And then it happened again, and she started seeing. So they actually did a brain scan in August of 1969. So the following year, they did a brain scan. And then they couldn't really find anything, and she kept having. And then she started hearing knocks on the walls, and there's some speculation that maybe her siblings also heard the same knocks.
Yes, I heard that. So,
and she started exhibiting strange behavior, and so then
really quick.
Yeah.
Where do you think those knocks came from? If other people heard it,
it's kind of a dispute whether the other family members heard the knocks. Okay. I don't know.
Sure, go.
I think it is in dispute. I think there's lore. The problem with the exorcism stuff is like there always becomes these like exorcism is a little bit like a
telephone.
It's telephone. It's like a chupacabra effect. Like people grandize it in a story. There's definitely I think with exorcism, there's definitely some creepiness going on, and there's definitely some weird cases, and there's some creepy voices, and there's some stuff that's strange that happens that's personal in these exorcisms, but there's definitely also exaggerations that go on, so it's hard to tell. I don't know, but she heard knocking, and there's some speculation that maybe some of her family members heard knocking as well. So the family again, super Catholic, so they started calling in priests because they didn't know what to do, because she started having these episodes, and the brain scans didn't turn up anything in the seizures. And a lot of times the seizures are, if they're in an uber religious household, the seizures are correlated with demon possession. In this case, especially back then, because this was early or late 60s. So they had a priest come in named Ernest L, who met with her on this is one of my favorite things, and it shouldn't be. It's sad. I guess the priest saw her, and he said, I guess when he met her, upon seeing her, he declared that she didn't look like an epileptic, and that did not see her having
Because
these
what
seizures.
does an epileptic look like?
Exactly. Welcome. So that was a little shady. She started acting stranger and stranger. She started attributing it to the devil. Like she thought she had the devil in him, and she actually thought she had like what?
But she was also raised very religious.
Mm-hmm.
So even if she sinned inside her mind, like maybe she had a lustful thought, she was young to have maybe sex before marriage. I'm just throwing something out there. Then she might have, like she might have thought if her family was uber religious, sure, like you can't have these thoughts and you're going to hell or the demon's going to come inside you. Like, so she might have really let this get to her head because she was raised so crazy religious too.
Yeah, she was. Yeah, and so Anneliese, she started getting in her head that she was possessed by the devil, right? And she actually started talking about like atoning for, this is the fucked up part, is that she ended up talking about atoning for like the sins of the youth. Like she really got it in her head that she was the devil. And I think part of her, she actually also said that like
she almost was like clarifying that she was like, in a sense, she didn't say this, but I'm taking it as this like Jesus Christ like dying for other people's sins.
Yeah, she definitely thought that she got it in her head that she was definitely like a sacrificial figure, and that she was somehow taking on the devil inside of her. It just became really fucked up. And she actually I saw that she had 67 exorcisms performed on her, 4 hours a day, and she stopped eating, which is just
on her own.
She stopped eating on her own. She refused to eat, and
a lot of priests that say like another things other than seeing the white in their eyes. They say that their face starts to look not the same as it did before, like more elongated. Have you heard that? And that's how they could start to see visually if somebody's possessed, because they could see a difference in their face.
Fucking hooey. It's all fucking hooey. Let's see if we could pull up the actual audio of some of her sessions. It's awkward. So right now we're listening to normal Anneliese. Quote unquote normal Anneliese. She sounds like she's struggling.
She's praying. Yeah, she's praying that the demons leave.
And here's her performing as Hitler, essentially.
Nein, ihr Klötze! Er war mir Klötze! Oh, so gerne will er nicht, oh, ich gerne, oh.
Sind wir schon 3?
Ah, wie. Was ist so eine Scheiße?
Als Kind Gottes.
Ich hab dein Maul erschlagen!
She also, this is apparently her Nero.
Ruhe gibt nur da oben!
Ruhe gibt's nur dort, wo die Liebe ist.
Ja, bei uns gibt's nur
Nur Hass.
Ja.
Und wo nur Hass ist, da gibt's keine Ruhe.
Nein, und für uns gibt's nie Ruhe. Nie!
Weil
Ewigkeit!
Well, I think that's enough. I think we got the gist of it. It's
the typical story too. When you look at the exorcism, they all have the growling. It's almost like their voice sounds 3-dimensional, like it's more than one voice is like intertwined into one voice. It definitely sounds possessed to me.
I mean, she is definitely feeling something. She is.
I mean, it'll be interesting, especially with our technology and science, how far we've come. It'll be interesting in the near future if they do a new and proper diagnosis of this, if this is something neurologically maybe connected to some kind of epilepsy, but a different form that makes them go into like a third person. I mean, I'm sure there already is something like this, right?
If you're dealing with any kind of, those audio tapes are creepy. Mm-hmm. And what happened to her was creepy. But if you can imagine a world where you're going through some shit, and then there's a priest shouting stuff at you for 4 hours, 67 times, you're going to feed it, especially if clearly she got it in her head, right? Whether it was the demon or whether it was some kind of psychosis that there was the demon was within her and she's atoning for the youth and stuff. That's a heavy thing to carry if you're that age. Like, she clearly was like having, all kinds of issues. And so I don't know. It's crazy. And she actually the crazy thing is she died of starvation. Like, she just stopped eating to death, essentially. Like,
And in this case, I feel like it might have been, I mean, I know there's speculations, but I think that it actually might have been an exorcism, because, I mean, at that point, like, if you want to die, you get it done quickly. Like, this girl starved her. She gave herself a slow death mentally. Like, she knew she was doing that if she was coherent.
I think that her body was just shutting down. Like, and I think that there's certain. So when you think about when you're stressed out, you don't want to eat, right? Like, you lose a lot of people lose their appetite. Imagine just a world where for 4 hours a day you're being shouted at by a priest, essentially, and having all these these performative rites ceremony where you and then for the remainder of the day you're convinced that the devil's in you and that you're laying there trying to figure it out. Like, that's not going to make you eat.
Yeah,
that's not going to make you eat. And in fact, it was because of this and because of what happened, I think that the parents were tried and they went to trial, and the priest went to trial actually too.
Wow, I didn't know that.
You didn't know that? Yeah. So because of the negligence, because she what she died of was not being overcome by the demon, or she died of starvation. Mm-hmm. So the German government was thinking, well, why didn't you try further steps? Why didn't you try more diagnostic instead of just having one brain scan and just going, okay, well, it's the demon. Let's just go 67 times full balls to the wall. Why didn't you try to get her more specialist or something? Or why didn't you try to feed her intravenous or something like that? Especially because
she should have been, what year was this?
1968 into 19.
So at that point, she could have been put on, if they had admitted her, they could have put her on some kind of liquid, injecting her, because we had the technology by that time. Yeah. I mean, if my child, I think what a lot of these parents, and would be my fear too, especially when you think of a psych ward, it's a scary thing to think to leave your child in this room that everything about this room is scary. It's eerie. They're alone. And I don't know if I could do that to my own child unless I was able to stay in there with him.
Oh, no, I wouldn't.
And I think maybe that's a little bit of, they were so worried and concerned and they were so holy and religious. Do I think that they should have maybe tried that approach to get her to at least eat? Yes. I would have had the priest come there instead. Because didn't they do that with Roland? He at one point was admitted.
I think he was,
and that same hospital is still there, but they blocked off that room.
They boarded up the
after the demon was, in case the demon was still in there.
He's just
waiting for someone else.
Same room. These demons.
But in that case,
sad.
he was hospitalized. She easily could have been hospitalized and still had the priest coming. She should have been
hospitalized. Yes. You could have. Okay,
I would have done both.
Here's the thing.
Fun for both.
Here's the thing: is that you have to, if you're religious, sure, take the religious route. Fine, fair enough. But for fuck's sake, let's get some more scientific routes for the, it just don't just say, well, God, I don't know, if you have a child, like, and there's ways to save them, why not do it? It to me isn't. I think the parents really did a disservice to poor Anneliese. Like, I really do. And whether you think it's the devil or not, like, you can work out the devil kinks.
You have to try all angles. Me being religious, yeah, you better believe. Like, if I thought that was happening, I didn't want to say the words out loud, but I'm gonna go all angles, like balls to the wall. I'm gonna try everything.
You have to
protect my child.
You have to,
and to heal my child.
And this is one of the things that, like, when we talk about, like, the dangers sometimes of religious, like the small dangers, not like the Crusades, that was a big danger of religion. But sometimes, like, these families give it over to religion, and it can really have a detriment on society. And there's obviously plenty of cases of people being shunned out of their families because of LGBTQ stuff, sex before marriage. We had a big episode on witches and being maybe different and being cast aside. So religion can have real world effects, like, on people. Like, if it's not in this modern age, if it's not a supplement and a way to kind of a guidance matter, like, if you're living your life like it's all in God's hands, like, I think it's neglect. I do. I understand, like, that people can have their own religions, but I think that
what's interesting too about all the, like, the priests that perform these exorcisms, they say it's all affiliated with people that have messed around with tarot cards, psychics,
of course,
occult, witches, playing the Ouija board.
That's like their go-to card. That's like their greatest hit,
because they've released the door to the other side. They've allowed,
Do you think so? Do you think that
there's some truth behind that? Do I? Is that what you're going to ask?
No.
Oh, but I do.
Of course you do. That's why I didn't ask, because I knew what
the
your answer
only
would be.
reason why, and I've said it a billion times, I'm sorry, I'll say it again.
You haven't said a billion times is a lot.
No, what I'm about to say is that I've talked about how I played the Ouija board, and I really think that I had a guardian angel because I got so obsessed and infatuated with it. It was kind of like taking over me. Where I could see something.
That's all that Catholic guilt you grew up with.
And I remember the last time I ever played was when the good spirit came through and said, "You need to stop. He's coming." And I kept trying to find out who was coming, and I kept going to goodbye. And then at that point, I just turned the thing over, erased the board, put it away, and I never dabbled in it again because it was getting real.
I think that might have partially to do with your Catholic upbringing. So let me get a background.
It was a bunch of Catholic girls playing together.
Was it really?
It was. Yeah.
Okay. Let me get a background, just a personal background. This is not a summary of all Catholic experiences. Was there talk of exorcisms growing up? Did you have?
No.
Did you ever
Stigmatas? Nothing. I didn't even learn what a stigmata was until we went to
fun. I thought you
Italy.
got all the Catholic fun.
8 years
you just got all
ago.
the guilt, not the fun.
No, because my family's very, like, they're holy in the sense where I don't even know if my grandma would believe in that stuff because she'd be so scared of. I'm sure she thought it was, like, real, but I don't think she'd, like, believe in, like, really want to believe in stuff like that. So
it takes. I don't know how much of, even for, you got to be pretty hard. I think you have to be pretty hardcore to really believe that demons go in people pretty frequently. Like, even the priest, like, I think the priest was, like, admitting that he kind of was like, oh yeah, we get a lot of calls and 1 in 5,000 is a real demonic possession. Like,
yeah.
So,
a lot of priests there. I mean, they say it just definitely happens, but there's majority of them aren't real, which I think is cool for priests. But then there's those assholes, like the one I was telling you. We got to look up that one in Argentina, which makes me sad because I love Argentinians and I really want to go to Argentina someday. Okay. But it makes me sad because it's like I feel like he's using it as a tool to manipulate young people and to take advantage.
I think it's also a matter of, like, I think for a while it was also a matter, exorcisms were another control mechanism, right? If you so to kind kind of cast people aside for acting strange or mental health issues or whatever, you have to say that it's a demon in them, right? And you have to, if you are the church, you also have to say that we have a solution for this. Like, you can't be like, exorcisms were brought out of the fact that people sometimes wanted to cast abnormal behavior on the devil, right? On the demon in possession. And if you're the church, you can't say, well, we believe in this, but we don't have an answer. You have to have sort of an answer, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's what it got born out of. I don't know. I don't know. Who knows? But yeah, she was a very interesting case. I don't know if
It's sad. Like, you look at her, and she's just such this beautiful girl, and I mean, it breaks my heart looking at those pictures of her prior before the end times. I just see just such a beautiful soul, and it makes me
I got a
so
question for you.
sad.
Jumping back over to we're jumping back and forth, but if you woke up one morning and you noticed there was a scar in the shape of like Phoenix, Arizona, or something like that,
Would I move there?
what would you do? Would you never go to Phoenix? Would you move to Phoenix? What would you do? Like, what would be your reaction?
Well, first of all, I'd
Would you take the first train to Phoenix?
probably slug you, because I'd be like, "Why did you fucking do this, you asshole?"
I love Phoenix. I do.
So I would blame
Phoenix
you.
is just fine. Either
I
way.
blame you for everything. So it'd be your fault.
Very true.
So it'd be your
Biggest
fault.
truth you've said
Even
so
if
far.
I did it to myself, it would be your fault that I did it to
Okay.
myself.
But what would be your move? What would be? So it wasn't me.
No.
It was confirmed that it wasn't me.
Why
what
would
would
I
you do?
fucking like? No offense to the people from Phoenix.
So you just stay out of Phoenix for the rest of your life.
Like, no, like I just don't have any desire to go there.
Would
I mean,
you? But what would you?
Maybe camping.
Okay. But what would be your reaction to it? Like, if you had a,
I would
scar,
look into it. Like, I would definitely
What's
start
in Phoenix?
Google it.
What is Phoenix?
Joaquin Phoenix. Like, maybe I'm supposed to meet Joaquin.
Yeah. No, it said Phoenix, comma Arizona.
Oh, sorry.
Because I know that
Oh,
if you had like Phoenix show up on you're like, it'd be a sign there's going to be resurrection of some sort. I know that you would think it would be like the bird Phoenix
Maybe.
from the ashes came.
I'm not gonna move there. Maybe I would probably be like a weirdo and be like, let's go spend a weekend there and see if anything comes.
Spend a weekend there.
And see if anything comes to me.
Okay, if that happens, I'm staying in a different room.
Why?
Because I don't want a devil coming in my room.
Oh, so he does believe.
Just in case. I don't want to deal with that. You know how many nightmares I have, like whether real or fiction. I would definitely, if you told me,
God, you know what he did to me the other night, you guys.
What did I do?
Like, I already like couldn't sleep very well because I had eye surgery, so I was already like.
That's why you're wearing the cool shades.
I just like to wear my sunglasses at night, so I can.
Yeah, it's the drugs, got kids.
So, like, I already couldn't sleep very well. And then, like, I think I just started dozing off, and it's probably like 2 a.m. And this asshole, like, wakes up, but he's not, he's like in his weird, like, sleep paralysis thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's awake, and he starts, like, coming close to my face. He's like, hold still. And I'm like, get the fuck away from my eyes, first of all.
Okay.
Like, and then I was just like, stop it. And then he, like, yeah, I know they say you're not supposed to wake him up. I fucking wake him up every time.
Because
He's like you're not supposed to, when people are going through that,
What?
you're not supposed to wake them up. They say,
Why?
like, I don't know. It's
You
bad.
always wake me up.
Because you piss me off.
You're doing the wrong thing.
No,
Just
because
let me
he
chase
startles
down that
me.
Grim Reaper.
He freaks me out because I had my car broken into a couple of days ago prior to all this. So I was already on edge. I have fucking eye surgery where I have to sleep all awkward. And then this asshole's like in my face saying, more of that. And I'm just like, fuck you.
That's a great impression of me.
So it was a series of events.
Yeah.
And don't fuck with my sleep because I'm not a nice person.
Yeah.
I need my full 10 hours.
Would you ever, so if you were a priest, would you volunteer for the exorcism squad?
Yes.
Or you'd be like, no way.
Yes.
No way, no how.
Yes. I would.
Really?
I would want to heal people.
But isn't,
Hey, look, I'll be honest, just like I'm talking to you right now. If if I see this, obviously this person is having a fucking seizure in front of me, I'm going to be like, hey, let's take you to
Let's take you
the
to a doctor,
hospital.
someone actually knows what to do.
Let's go.
Well, also, too-
and I will come and pray over you every day. And I think that that's fair.
I think the Catholic Church got wise too, because they're also like, well, before they were like, let's try the washing the devil out or whatever. That's the term, right? I like that better than exercising. Washing the devil out. Let's wash the devil out. That was like their go-to, but now definitely like the Catholic Church is like, well, we have this crew. We have like a 50 crew specialist. Like we have our Catholic Ghostbusters, but let's first try all the scientific routes, guys. Let's make sure that we get that. So they've gotten a little wise to it. Like, do you think so? Let me ask you this. Do you think that any of this devil demon possession is actually bad spirits? Not the devil himself, like not that car dealer, but do you think that there's any like bad spirits that are confused for the devil? Is that an answer?
Good question. That's for the bloopers. What was the question?
I was asking how much.
That's for the bloopers too.
How much you love me? No, I don't.
This much. Happy almost anniversary.
Yeah, right.
He's probably going to take this part
Something.
out of the...
Okay, last question for you. Ready? Are you actually listening to me this time?
Of course, because I love
Do you
you
think there's any-
unconditionally.
Yeah, well, not earlier. Do you think we had a little quabble before? If I don't decide to edit that out,
You know why? Because I overly communicate and he underly communicates. The end.
underling. I feel like an underling all around. So pretty. Do you think any of these like demonic devils in you? Do you think any of it's like confused? Because I know that you believe in. Let's not even ask the question. Like I'm not going to go through the preamble. Hey, Brianna, do you believe? I know you believe that there's like spirit possession or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, of course. Do you think that any of these exorcisms were just like literally like the ghost of like Hitler was in Anneliese? Because she said that she was embodying it. It wasn't the devil, but it was Hitler. Do you think that's the case?
Yeah, she named like a few different...
She named Nero from Rome, right? And Hitler and all kinds of
I
stuff.
don't know. Because I definitely believe in exorcism, but I don't know if her case was because she never had like a psychological analysis.
She
that
was...
I don't really want to say that.
She was iffy. Like, that case was shady all around. Like,
Yeah.
she was...
And the fact that I understand that they hid like the identities of these people, but I'm kind of bummed that they did that because
Not
especially
Anneliese, I don't think. Anneliese was like...
was she like that was legit
She
her
was
name
like-
and everything?
Yeah, she was like
Oh,
out
okay.
there, and it was like...
Okay.
I mean, I don't think they were like, hey, this is our weekly update on our daughter, but like they didn't... I don't think they weren't looking... They didn't write any books or anything, but they definitely weren't
Kept
as
it
like...
very private.
I don't think they were as like because of the trial. I don't think they could have been that way, but I don't think they were like the Roland case, the Exorcist case, the famous Exorcist, where it's like we're disappearing. Like you won't find us, like unless you try really hard, and you might find me like many years later. But they had to be more out there because they had a trial going on. But
Yeah, I feel like they're with Roland with any cases like people shouldn't be afraid. I mean, maybe they're more afraid because they want to make it just go away and disappear because it was such a traumatic time. But I just wish there was more research and information about it to where we're not so much like, did it happen? Did it not happen? Like, you know,
I think there still would be, did it happen or did not? Because you're
Speculations.
just like, it's like a few people in a room and like...
Well, now with the way that they can monitor the brain, to me, and like I really think they would be able to see if there was a natural phenomenon going on.
Probably.
Which I
At
think
that
is-
time,
yeah.
like for Anneliese, for example, they could have the brain scan that they had. The technology was not there, so I think they could have. I don't know. It's tragic. It's especially when you see like photos of her and what she went through and how the family just essentially. I don't want to say they gave up. The parents gave up on her, but they just cast it all to these priests. They're like, here, like, and then they just let her starve. Like, it's just insane. It's insane.
I couldn't.
Yeah, I couldn't do that either. Well, this has been an episode of Extra Normal Podcast. Again, my name is Chris. Alongside me is Brianna. You can find us at Extra Normal Podcast on Instagram, Extra Normal P on Twitter. You can email us if you have ever had an exorcist done to you, or if you know anybody who's ever had an exorcism done, or
if you need one.
If you need one, if you are an exorcist, please let us know. We'd love to talk to anybody who's like a full on, like, I perform exorcism. That'd be cool. But email us at extranormalpodcast@gmail.com. You can support us at patreon.com / I never know where it's / or / so I'm just going to say / because it makes me sound less dumb, even though I outed myself as an idiot. / Extra Normal Podcast. Brianna, where can they find you?
Darlene Dolly with an O, not a 0. Wait, sorry, with a 0. Not
We've just outed ourselves
and
as
please,
both as idiots.
Again, if you guys are experiencing dark thoughts, need someone to talk to, need information on who to reach out to, do not think that you are alone. We are in this together, and we're here for you. Seriously, we're not just saying this. Like, I just... Anybody that I can help in any way, shape, or form,
sure,
I would love to help you.
Yeah, and we're not above that. Like, we both have, like, obviously we both discussed we've had
nobody, everybody does.
Sure.
Whether people want to admit it or not, especially on social media. Don't believe all that bullshit you see. It's all a fucking facade.
Well, people are just like, get over it, or fucking assholes. Flat out. People are just like, once you get over it, or just fucking dicks. That's the meat of it. Well,
but you can get over it. I know that you can. You
can, but don't be afraid to ask for help, because help can be. That's why it's called help, because it's helpful. That's another dumb comment from me.
You're not very helpful.
No, because I don't work for Honda. Well, this has been an episode of Extra Normal Podcast, and I always say, be friends of possessions.
And I always say, stay magical.
Fuck that.